I, 17F, live with my dad. We'll call him Dad, but trust me, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. And my stepmom, Stacy. My mom passed away when I was 10, and she left me a pretty sizable college fund, enough to pay for 4 years at a decent university. The money's been in a trust that my grandmother oversees, so it's not like anyone can just waltz in and take it. But that didn't stop Stacy from trying. Dad remarried Stacy about 2 years after my mom passed. They had a whirlwind romance. She was fun and sweet at first. At least that's what it seemed like at the time. Once the honeymoon period ended, the claws came out. Stacy started making snide comments about my expenses. Do you really need those name brand shoes? Or we should look into cheap colleges, no sense in wasting money. Typical controlling stepmom stuff. My grandmother had always handled the college fund with a lawyer's help, but the money was set aside specifically for my education. I couldn't touch it until I turned 18 or started college, whichever came first. My dad, bless his heart, rarely understands the intricacies of finance. He's the type who thinks if you don't see your balance go negative at the ATM, everything's good. Anyway, a few months ago, Stacy started acting super nice to me out of the blue. She'd make me breakfast, pick me up from school, stuff she never did before. At first I thought, okay, maybe she's turning over a new leaf. But then she began, casually, talking about how my dad and she were struggling financially. She mentioned credit card bills, home repairs, that kind of thing. Slowly, she began hinting that I had this extra money just sitting there in my college fund. One day, she cornered me when Dad was at work and basically said, "If you really love this family, you'll help us out. There's plenty in your college account and we can always pay you back." I told her that wasn't possible because the account was locked up and controlled by my grandmother. She just kind of pursed her lips and changed the topic. Fast forward to last month. Stacy started pushing for a family meeting. I walk into the living room and she's already got Dad on board with some scheme. She told me she'd worked out a deal with the bank to release some of the college funds early to help pay for a temporary crisis. She kept stressing it would be paid back in full before I started college. Dad, naturally, was nodding along like he completely understood. I asked her for details. What's the interest rate? What's the time frame for repayment? Are there penalties involved? She got super flustered and told me, "A child wouldn't understand." I just responded, "Well, if I'm such a child, it's strange that you want me to do something so adult with my money." That's when she dropped the bomb. "You don't have a choice." She claimed that Dad, as my legal guardian, could access the funds until I turned 18. My dad, who was apparently all in on this, shrugged and said, "She's right." I was fuming. I knew for a fact that was incorrect, but Dad wouldn't listen. He's always had a happy wife, happy life attitude, so if Stacy says jump, he's already halfway in the air. Here's the twist. My grandmother and I had a suspicion that Stacy might try something like this. Grandma's a total boss. She restructured the trust right after Mom died, so only she had access until I turned 18. Meaning, my dad couldn't legally lay a finger on that money. I'd gotten to the point where I was ready to let them dig their own grave, so I played along. I pretended to give in. I acted all heartbroken and guilty, saying things like, "If we really need the money, I guess I'll just have to sacrifice." Stacy had that smug look like she'd just won the lottery. She kept talking about all the things she was going to fix around the house, probably daydreaming about a new car too. The day we all went to the bank was glorious. We walk in, Stacy's leading the pack in her best power suit, practically giddy. She tries handing over the legal documents she'd cobbled together. The banker takes one look at them, then politely says, "I'm sorry, but these papers don't give you any right to withdraw funds from the trust." Stacy insisted, "He's the legal guardian. He can withdraw on behalf of his daughter." The banker just flipped to a page in the trust file, pointed to my grandmother's signature, and said, "The only person who can do that is Grandma's name." Stacy's face went white. She tried to argue, but the banker held firm. I was standing behind them, trying not to burst out laughing. My dad started scratching his head like, "Wait, that's not what Stacy told me." Meanwhile, Stacy was just stammering, but that can't be right." My dad and I had a very awkward car ride home. I finally told him the truth. Grandma restructured the trust, so not even he had access. I also dropped the bomb that Stacy had been pushing me for months to hand over the money. He was shocked, though I could see it dawning on him just how gullible he'd been. Stacy tried to do damage control, saying, "It was just for the family. I only wanted to help." Dad looked genuinely hurt that she'd gone behind his back and lied. We haven't talked much since, but I know Dad and Stacy have been having arguments about this. She still tries to play nice sometimes, but I just keep my distance. As for me, my college fund is safe and sound with Grandma until I start my freshman year next fall. I'm still planning on living at home until I move into a dorm, but the vibes in our house are tension central. I'm just counting the days until I can go to college and leave these drama llamas behind.